believe someone would fire your boyfriend just to get a chance with you? I couldn't believe it either until it happened to me. Those ice-cold stares every morning, the harsh criticism, I thought she hated me. But the truth was, she loved me so much she was willing to destroy someone else's career. And the craziest part? I felt the same way about her. Let me start from the beginning. Working at Luxe magazine was supposed to be my dream job. Fresh out of college, landing at assistant position at one of the most prestigious fashion publications in New York should have felt like winning the lottery. But 3 months in, it felt more like serving a prison sentence. The reason? Isabella Chen. At 28, she was the youngest executive editor in the magazine's history. Brilliant, ruthless, and absolutely terrifying. She had this way of looking at you that made you feel like she could see straight through to your soul, and found it lacking. Every morning, I'd bring her coffee, and every morning, she'd find something wrong with it. Too hot, too cold, wrong blend, wrong cup. I was starting to think she just enjoyed watching me squirm. But it wasn't just the coffee. In meetings, she'd single me out with impossible questions. She'd critique my notes, my outfits, even the way I walked. My colleagues called her the Ice Queen, and I was starting to understand why. "You're overthinking this," Jake would tell me during our lunch breaks. "She's probably just testing you. All bosses do that with new employees." Jake Martinez had been my boyfriend for 8 months and my anchor in this chaotic place. He was everything Isabella wasn't: warm, encouraging, easygoing. As the magazine's graphic designer, he'd been working at Luxe for 2 years and knew how to navigate the politics. But even Jake seemed nervous that Tuesday morning when we walked into the monthly creative review meeting. When I pushed open the meeting room door, 18 pairs of eyes turned to me at once. But only one pair made me tremble. The cold blue eyes of Isabella Chen, sitting at the head of the polished conference table like a queen on her throne. "Thank you for being late, Sophia. Now we can all get back to work." I glanced at the wall clock, 9:02 a.m., 2 minutes late because the elevator had been packed. I mumbled an apology and slipped into the only available seat, directly across from Isabella. For the next hour, I felt her eyes on me. Every time I looked up for my notes, there she was, watching me with those unreadable blue eyes. It made my skin prickle with nervous energy. "What's wrong with her?" Jake whispered in my ear during a brief break when Isabella stepped out to take a call. I shrugged, my eyes still fixed on the files scattered across the table. "I don't know, but I have a feeling she's going to tear me apart today." When the meeting ended, Isabella stood up. "Sophia, come to my office." My legs were shaking, but I stood up. Jake squeezed my hand and whispered, "Good luck." Isabella's office was spacious, with huge windows overlooking Manhattan. The afternoon light cast long shadows across her mahogany desk, making the room feel even more intimidating. "Sophia," Isabella sat down in her luxurious leather chair, "I divide people into 2 categories, those who are useful and those who aren't." She pointed to a chair. "Sit down." I sat, clasping my trembling hands together. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. "Which category do you think you belong in?" My throat went dry. I don't know, Isabella." Her lips curved up, not quite a smile, more like the expression of a predator studying its prey. "Honest. I like that." She pulled a file from her desk and tossed it in front of me. The papers scattered slightly, and I recognized Jake's distinctive design layouts. All of Jake Martinez's designs from the past 3 months. What do you see? I opened the file, flipping through the pages carefully. Jake's work was always clean and modern, but as I looked closer, beautiful designs. Jake's work is always very refined. "No," Isabella raised her hand, cutting me off. "Look closer, Sophia. Really look. Don't see what you want to see. See what is actually there." This time I observed more carefully, my trained eye picking up details I'd missed before. There are some inconsistencies. Colors sometimes don't match the brand guidelines, fonts are mixed without clear hierarchy, each page has a different layout philosophy. Isabella nodded slowly. "Exactly. Inconsistent, amateurish, unacceptable for a publication of Lux's caliber. Jake Martinez has been terminated as of today. My heart stopped. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? He's been fired. He should be packing his things right now. I jumped to my feet, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. But you can't do that. Jake loves this job. He just needs more guidance, better feedback. Isabella remained completely unmoved, her expression carved from ice. Sit down, Sophia. No, this isn't fair. Why did you really fire him? What's the real reason? Isabella stood up slowly, her full height making her presence even more commanding. You want to know the real reason? Because I watch you every morning when you bring me coffee, and your eyes always drift to him. You bring him coffee too, leave it on his desk with a little smile. He touches your shoulder when he passes by, and you light up like he's given you the sun. I couldn't breathe. The office suddenly felt too small, too warm. What does that have to do with his job performance? Because you deserve better. Isabella's voice suddenly softened, the ice cracking to reveal something warmer underneath. He doesn't deserve you, Sophia. I was confused. Why would Isabella Chen care about my personal life? This is my private life, I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and confusion. Isabella's eyes never left mine. I watch you every day, Sophia. How you work, how you talk, how you laugh, and every day I see him being indifferent to you, not appreciating your worth. She stepped closer, one step at a time. I could smell her perfume, something expensive and intoxicating that made my head spin. You want to know what I see? I see you staying late every night, perfecting layouts that he'll get credit for. I see you covering for his mistakes, fixing his color schemes when he's too rushed to notice the inconsistencies. Last week, you spent your entire lunch break redesigning his September spread because the client rejected his initial concept. My eyes widened. How could she know all this? I'd made sure no one was around when I'd helped Jake with that project. And your birthday, she continued, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. Last Tuesday, I watched you wait by your phone all morning, hoping he'd remember. I saw your face fall when noon came and went without so much as a text message. But I noticed. I remembered. I stared at her in amazement. How do you know when my birthday is? Isabella moved to her desk drawer and pulled out a file, my personnel file. It was thick, much thicker than it should have been for someone who'd only worked there 3 months. I know you graduated summa cum laude from Columbia University with a degree in journalism and art history. I know you speak 3 languages fluently. I know you volunteer at the animal shelter on weekends and that you're working a second job at a coffee shop to pay off your student loans. She flipped through pages as she spoke, and I realized with growing amazement that she really did know everything about me. I know your favorite color is emerald green, which is why I made sure the dress in last month's feature spread was that exact shade just to see your reaction during the photo review. I know you bite your lip when you're concentrating, and you always wear that small silver necklace, the one with the compass charm, that belonged to your grandmother. My hand instinctively went to my throat, touching the necklace she'd mentioned. She'd been watching me that closely? This is very strange, I whispered. Isabella's expression softened, vulnerability flickering across her usually composed features. Is it strange when someone cares enough to notice? When someone sees all the small details that make you who you are? My throat tightened. What do you mean? Why did you really fire Jake? Tell me the truth. Isabella closed the file and set it down gently on her desk. Because every day, watching him ignore you, take you for granted, not see how extraordinary you are, it was killing me. She took a deep breath, and for the first time since I'd known her, Isabella Chen looked vulnerable, almost fragile. Because he was keeping you away from me. The world stopped. What? Isabella took another step closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in her blue eyes. The first day I saw you, my heart stopped beating. Your brilliant mind, your quiet strength, the way you handle pressure with such grace. But then I saw him, saw how you looked at him, and I knew I didn't stand a chance. She ran a hand through her perfectly styled hair, messing it for the first time since I'd known her. I made you work hard, maybe too hard, but only so you could see your own potential. Every impossible task I gave you, you exceeded my expectations. Every challenge, you rose to meet it. I wanted you to see what I saw, that you're extraordinary. I shook my head, backing away until I hit the wall. This is crazy. You hate me. Every morning you humiliate me, find every mistake I make, criticize everything I do. Because I want you to be perfect. Isabella reached out as if to touch my cheek, then let her hand fall. Because perfect is what you deserve, and perfect is what you're capable of. But also because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of these feelings. Afraid of your reaction. Afraid that if I was kind to you, if I let my guard down, you'd see right through me and realize that the ice queen everyone fears is just a woman who's desperately, hopelessly in love with her assistant. The words hung in the air between us. My heart was pounding so loudly, I was sure she could hear it. "Do you hate me?" she whispered, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. I couldn't answer immediately. Something inside me had shifted, like puzzle pieces clicking into place. All those moments when I'd caught her staring at me, the way her criticism always pushed me to do better rather than tearing me down. The coffee that was never quite right because maybe she just wanted an excuse to interact with me. Isabella. I said her name like I was testing it on my tongue. I don't hate you. She turned around, hope and vulnerability warring in her expression. You don't? No, I don't know what I feel. This is all so sudden, so confusing. What about Jake? I took a deep breath, finally admitting something I'd been trying not to acknowledge for weeks. Jake and it's been over for a while. I just haven't had the courage to end it. We're going through the motions, but there's no real connection left. Isabella searched my face. Really? Yes, but that still doesn't justify firing him. He's a good person, even if we're not right for each other. Isabella bit her lip, a gesture that made her look younger, less intimidating. I can hire him back, if you want. Maybe in a different department, where the work might suit him better. I looked into her eyes, seeing a softness and sincerity I'd never seen before. Why? Why would you do that for me? Because I want to see you happy, Sophia, even if that happiness doesn't include me. What if it did? The words were out before I could stop them. Isabella Chen, what? What if it did include you? Could you make me happy? My heart was racing. Isabella Chen, Lux's ice queen, was opening her heart to me, and the most frightening thing was the fire burning inside me that wanted to respond. I don't know, I said honestly, but maybe we could find out? Isabella's lips curved in the first genuine smile I'd ever seen from her. How would you want to start? I took a deep breath and stepped away from the wall, moving closer to her. Maybe with dinner. Tonight? She asked, hope lighting up her features. I nodded. Tonight. Isabella reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Her touch was gentle, warm. When I returned to the office, Jake was at his desk, throwing his design portfolios into a cardboard box with more force than necessary. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, and there was a red flush creeping up his neck. "Damn, Isabella," he muttered, not looking up when I approached. 3 years I've worked here, 3 years of loyalty, and she fires me over some minor inconsistencies that any decent art director could fix in an afternoon? I sat on the edge of his desk, watching him stuff his personal items into the box. A framed photo of us from last Christmas, his collection of vintage design books, the succulent plant I'd given him for his last birthday. "Jake, we need to talk." He finally looked up, his brown eyes filled with frustration. "If this is about trying to get me my job back, don't bother. I've already called Marcus at Vogue. He said they might have an opening next month." It's not about the job, I said quietly. Well, not entirely. Jake, I think we should break up. The portfolio he was holding slipped from his hands and scattered across the floor. What? We haven't been happy for months. You know it, I know it. We've been going through the motions, but there's no spark left. Jake sat down heavily in his chair. Sophia, we've been together for 8 months. We've talked about moving in together, maybe getting a place in Brooklyn. Have we really talked about it? Or have you just mentioned it in passing while scrolling through your phone? He was quiet for a long moment. Around us, the office had mostly emptied out for the day, leaving just the hum of computers and the distant sound of the cleaning crew. Is this about her? He asked finally. Because Isabella fired me? I shook my head. This is about us. We've become roommates who occasionally sleep together. When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time you asked me about my dreams, my fears, my day beyond how was work? Jake stared at me for a long time, and I could see him processing what I was saying, recognizing the truth in it. You're serious about this? I am. But Jake, I might be able to help you get your job back if you want it. Isabella mentioned she could place you in a different department. He stood up abruptly, the chair rolling back and hitting the wall. You think I want charity from the woman who just destroyed my career? From you? It's not charity. Yes, it is. He grabbed his box and headed toward the elevator. 8 months together, and this is how it ends. You choosing your boss over me. Jake, wait! But the elevator doors had already closed. Standing alone in the empty design department, I felt a strange mixture of guilt and relief wash over me. The guilt was immediate and sharp. Ending any relationship was never easy, even one that had run its course. But the relief? The relief surprised me with its intensity. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe freely. By evening, my nerves had transformed from guilt into something else entirely. Anticipation. I'd gone home to change, trading my conservative work clothes for an emerald green dress that hugged my curves and made my eyes look brighter. Isabella's address led me to a luxury apartment building on the Upper East Side, the kind with a doorman in a crisp uniform and marble floors that gleamed under crystal chandeliers. When I knocked on the door to apartment 15B, I almost didn't recognize the woman who opened it. Gone was the severe business suit and tightly pulled back hair. Instead, Isabella wore soft gray cashmere pants and a cream silk blouse that made her skin glow. Her dark hair fell in loose waves past her shoulders, and she was barefoot. Her toenails painted a subtle shade of pink. Sophia, she smiled, and it transformed her entire face. You look beautiful. Come in. The apartment was a study in understated elegance, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of Central Park, modern furniture in cream and gold tones, and walls lined with original artwork that probably cost more than my annual salary. This is incredible, I breathed, walking to the windows. Thank you. I've lived here for 2 years, but I don't entertain often. She moved to a bar cart in the corner. Wine? I have a wonderful Pinot Grigio, or if you prefer red. White is perfect. As she opened the bottle, I noticed her hands were slightly shaky. Isabella Chen, the woman who commanded boardrooms full of powerful executives, was nervous. Somehow that made me feel more at ease. I spoke with Jake before he left, she said, pouring 2 glasses of wine. I offered him a position in the photography department. Marcus Williams has been asking for an additional designer, and despite our complications, Jake's portfolio shows real talent. I smiled, accepting the glass she offered. Thank you. That means a lot. I did it for you, only for you. We moved to her living room, sitting on opposite ends of a plush cream sofa. The city sparkled below us, but I found myself more interested in watching Isabella in this softer setting. I took a sip of wine, my eyes never leaving hers. Why me? Out of all the people in New York, all the successful, accomplished women, why you me? Isabella set down her wine glass and turned to face me fully. Do you want the honest answer? Always. I don't know. She laughed softly, shaking her head. I've been trying to figure it out for 3 months. The first day you walked into that meeting room, something shifted inside me. Something I hadn't felt in maybe ever. She pulled her legs up onto the sofa, getting more comfortable. You were so nervous, apologizing for being 30 seconds late, and you had this little wrinkle between your eyebrows that only appeared when you were concentrating really hard on taking notes. And when Marcus made that joke about the budget cuts, you were the only one who actually laughed. Not the polite fake laugh that everyone else gave, but this genuine, delighted sound. I felt my cheeks warm. You remember all that? I remember everything about that day. How you organized your notes in perfect columns, how you offered to get coffee for the entire room even though it wasn't your job, how you bit your lip when you thought no one was looking. I had no idea you were paying attention to me. Isabella's expression grew more serious. Sophia, I couldn't look away from you if I tried. And believe me, I tried. I told myself it was ridiculous, inappropriate, impossible. But then you do something. Smile at the security guard, stay late to help a colleague with their project, bring in cookies for the intern because you noticed she looked stressed, and I'd fall a little deeper. I set my wine glass on the coffee table and moved closer to her on the sofa. You were so harsh with me, though. Every day, I felt like I was feeling some test I didn't even know I was taking. Isabella reached out hesitantly and took my hand, because I was afraid of my feelings, afraid of making you uncomfortable, afraid that if I was kind to you, everyone would see right through me. And because she paused, looking down at our joined hands, because I was jealous. Jealous? Of Jake, of how easily he could touch you, make you smile, be the person you went home to at night. I made your work life difficult because I couldn't stand how easy he had it in every other area of your life. I squeezed her hand gently. Don't be afraid anymore. Isabella looked up, meeting my eyes. What about you? Aren't you afraid? I smiled, feeling more certain than I had about anything in months. Terrified. But maybe this time it's worth being afraid for. Isabella shifted closer on the sofa. Now there was just a breath of space between us, and I could see every fleck of gold in her blue eyes. May I kiss you? She whispered. Instead of answering with words, I closed the distance between us, pressing my lips to hers. The first touch was soft, tentative, like we were both testing the waters of something completely new. Then Isabella's hand came up to cut my cheek, and the kiss deepened into something that made my entire body come alive. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathless. Wow, she said, her voice husky. I've been imagining that for so long, but the reality is so much better. I think I've been imagining it too, without even realizing it. Isabella kissed me again, more passionately this time, more confident. Her hands found my waist, pulling me closer until I was practically in her lap. Every nerve ending in my body felt electrified. My bedroom, she whispered against my lips. Will you come with me? Without a hesitation, I nodded. Yes. That night, Isabella showed me aspects of myself I had never known existed. Her experience met my curiosity. Her confidence melted my inhibitions. And together we discovered a chemistry that was unlike anything I had ever experienced. She was patient and passionate, tender and intense. Every touch was deliberate, every kiss meaningful. She made me feel like I was being truly seen for the first time in my life. Not just my body, but my mind, my desires, my very soul. When I finally fell asleep in her arms, I felt complete in a way that I hadn't even realized I'd been missing. I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of rain pattering against the large windows. Sunlight was streaming through the bedroom, casting everything in a warm, golden glow. Isabella was already awake, propped up on one elbow, watching me with soft eyes. "Good morning, beautiful," she said, her voice husky from sleep. I stretched, feeling deliciously sore in the best possible way. "What time is it?"
7:30. I made coffee, but I can cancel my morning meetings if you'd prefer to stay in bed. The domesticity of the moment struck me. Isabella Chen, the terror of Lux magazine, was offering to cancel meetings just to spend more time with me. "Do you regret it?" I asked quietly. Instead of answering immediately, she leaned down and kissed me softly. "Sophia, I've been thinking about this for 3 months. If anything, I regret waiting so long." "What about work? What happens now?" Isabella's expression grew more serious. "That's up to you. We'll have to be discreet, at least initially. Office relationships, especially between a supervisor and subordinate, are complicated. But if you're willing, I'd like to see where this goes." I rolled over to face her fully. "What about Jake? You said you could get him his job back." "I meant what I said. If you want me to, I'll offer him a position in the photography department. Marcus Williams has been asking for an additional designer, and Jake's portfolio is actually quite strong when he applies himself." "You'd really do that?" "Sophia, I've fired him out of jealousy, which was unprofessional and unfair. If rehiring him makes you happy, then it makes me happy." I studied her face, looking for any sign of insincerity, but found none. "You're not what I expected, Isabella." "What did you expect?" "A monster," I said honestly. "Someone cold and calculating who enjoyed making people miserable." She laughed, a rich, warm sound I'd never heard before. "I suppose I can be those things, but not with you. Never with you." The next few weeks were a delicate balance. At work, Isabella and I maintained our professional relationship. She was still demanding, still held me to impossibly high standards, but now I understood that her criticism came from a desire to see me succeed, not from malice. The subtle changes were there if you knew what to look for. The coffee she'd always complained about suddenly became acceptable. She started assigning me more interesting projects, letting me sit in on client meetings, asking for my opinions on layouts and story concepts. During meetings, I'd sometimes catch her looking at me with a slight smile that she'd quickly hide behind her professional mask. Jake did return to work in the photography department as Isabella had promised. The first day back, he pulled me aside during lunch. "I don't understand what happened," he said, stirring his salad absently. "Isabella Chen personally called me, apologized for the hasty decision, and offered me this position with a salary increase. You had something to do with this, didn't you?" "She realized she'd made a mistake," I said diplomatically. Jake studied my face with the intensity he usually reserved for his design work. "There's something different about you. You seem lighter, happier." He wasn't wrong. For the first time in months, maybe years, I was excited to wake up in the morning. Work felt purposeful rather than like something to endure. And the nights were magical. Isabella and I would meet at her apartment 2 or 3 times a week. We'd cook dinner together, or rather, she'd cook while I provided moral support and wine. Talk about our days, our dreams, our fears. She told me about her childhood in San Francisco, how she'd worked her way up from an unpaid intern to executive editor, the sacrifices she'd made, and the loneliness that had come with success. I shared my own stories, my hopes of maybe writing for the magazine someday instead of just assisting, my dreams of traveling to cover fashion weeks around the world, my fears about never being taken seriously in such a competitive industry. "She should pitch an article," she said one evening as we sat on her couch, my feet in her lap while she absently massaged my ankles. "You couldn't. It would look like favoritism." "Then pitch it to Martimix or sort it to another publication first. You have talent, Sophia, real talent. Don't waste it because you're afraid of what people might think." Her encouragement was intoxicating. Jake had been supportive in his way, but it was the casual support of someone who assumed things would work out. Isabella's encouragement was different. It was the focused attention of someone who saw exactly what I was capable of and refused to let me settle for less.
3 months later, I was sitting in Isabella's office for our weekly review meeting when she slid a magazine across her desk with a barely contained smile. "Harper's Bazaar," she said, trying to maintain her professional composure but failing to hide her pride. Turned to page 147. There it was, My byline, my first published article about emerging designers in sustainable fashion. The piece I'd pitched to Harper's on Isabella's encouragement had been accepted, and seeing my name in print felt surreal. "I'm so proud of you," Isabella said softly, forgetting for a moment that her office door was open. "I never would have had the courage to submit it without your push. You would have found your way eventually. I just helped you see what was already there." After the meeting, I found a small note tucked under my keyboard, written in Isabella's elegant handwriting. "Dinner at my place. I have something important to ask you." That evening, as we sat on her terrace overlooking Central Park with the city lights twinkling below us, Isabella seemed nervous in a way I hadn't seen since our first night together. "Sophia, I've been thinking," she began, twirling her wine glass in her hands, "about us, about the future, about what we're building together." My heart skipped a beat. "Okay. I know we've been careful, keeping things private because of work complications, but I don't want to hide anymore. I want people to know that I'm with the most incredible woman I've ever met." She reached across the small table and took my hand, her fingers warm and steady against mine. "I'm in love with you, Sophia. Completely, utterly, head over heels in love with you. And if you're ready, I'd like to stop sneaking around and start building something real together. Something public. Something lasting." I felt tears prick my eyes, overwhelmed by the intensity of emotion in her voice. "Isabella, I know it's complicated. I know there will be office politics to navigate, and people will talk, and some will say you only got opportunities because of our relationship. But I don't care anymore. Life's too short to hide from love, and you're too extraordinary to keep secret." I squeezed her hand tighter, my heart full to bursting. "I love you too. I think I have since that first night, even though I was too scared to admit it to myself." "So what do you say? Ready to scandalize the fashion industry with me?" I laughed through my tears. "With you? I'm ready for anything." 6 months later, Isabella and I made our public debut at the CFDA Fashion Awards. The fashion press had a field day with the story. The Ice Queen executive and her former assistant, now a rising writer in her own right, with 3 published articles and a book deal in the works. Some people whispered about office romances and impropriety. There were a few snide comments about power dynamics and career advancement, but most of our colleagues had figured out our relationship long before we went public. Apparently, the way Isabella looked at me during meetings and the way I glowed whenever she was around had been not as subtle as we had thought. Jake, who had flourished in the photography department and was now dating a lovely art curator named Maria, pulled me aside at the office holiday party. "You know, I owe Isabella a thank you," he said, watching her across the room as she charmed a group of international buyers with her knowledge of emerging markets. "For the new position? For helping me see that what we had wasn't real love. It was comfortable, familiar, safe. But it wasn't the kind of love that changes your life, that makes you want to be better than you ever thought possible." He smiled, raising his champagne glass in Isabella's direction. "Look at you now. You're radiant. You found your calling as a writer. You're with someone who challenges and supports you in equal measure. I could never have given you that kind of growth." He was absolutely right. Looking back, what Jake and I shared was pleasant but surface level. We'd been playing house without building a real foundation. With Isabella, every conversation sparked something new. Every day brought fresh discoveries about each other, about ourselves, about what we could accomplish together. That's how it all happened. The boss I thought hated me actually loved me with an intensity that transformed both of our lives, and I loved her back just as fiercely. Sometimes love doesn't come in the package you expect. Sometimes it's harsh words that mask tender feelings, professional criticism that's really personal investment,
and ice-cold stares that melt into the warmest embraces when no one else is watching. Sometimes the best things in life come disguised as the worst, and sometimes, when you're brave enough to look beyond the surface, you find that love was there all along, waiting patiently for you to notice it, to be ready for it, to embrace it completely. The fashion industry loves a good transformation story, but this wasn't just about clothes or careers. This was about two people finding each other against all odds and choosing to build something beautiful together.